Glenn, how are things going over there? I tell you, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this. Rider stamps. Riders are going to be scoreboard watching as a player. Like, I know they're saying, and Harry and I were talking about it earlier, like, they say the right things. It's like, no, it's, we're professional. It's a game. We're not going to be paying attention. Yeah, you are. You are watching this game, and you should be. And then the second part to it is, should the riders rest most of the horses if things don't go the way we need them in Montreal?
Well, the reality is you can't rest too many guys with the limited roster sizes. I mean, you can rest a few, and certainly anyone who might have a little bit of a nick or has just come back from injury and maybe played one game. I think of Ouellette in that case. Guys like that, maybe you say, let's make sure they're fresh for the playoffs if Winnipeg wins for the semi. But, I'm resting Trevor for sure if it's me. Now, every coach has a different approach to this. Mark Trestman wouldn't even let Anthony Calvillo start in games that didn't matter in the standings. Wouldn't even dress him in those games, so he wouldn't be tempted to put him in. And some coaches think, and I think Jason Moss is one of them in Montreal, he wants to play his starters at least for a half because he doesn't want to get, them to get rusty. So lots of different approaches here. For me, I would rather be 100%, or no one's 100%, but I would rather have as fresh legs as possible than, be banged up going into the semifinal, and rather than have a little bit of rust in that first series or two in the semifinal. I always thought the first special teams cover team, you're in the flow of the game, But it's funny, Barney, when you say players say the right, they're saying all the right things. During the NHL regular season, players always say they're giving it all they got. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, the tempo and the space disappears, the tempo gets that much higher, and the physicality gets that much higher. And, well, wait a minute, you had this in the playoffs, but you didn't have that in the regular season. So don't tell me in the regular season it was everything you got, because it wasn't. But you can't control it. It just happens when you're in that do or die situation, kind of like fight or flight kind of thing. And, that's where you see the highest levels.
And we talked with Dave earlier. Luke's brought it up. Calgary coming in here. Yeah, I guess, there's guys that want tape or that are maybe hoping for a contract next year. And then there are going to be guys that it's making straight business decisions for that 3 hours on Saturday.
Well, I think for Calgary, they better, I've been in locker rooms where everybody's job is on the line. And everybody's job in Calgary is on the line. Everybody. So no matter what kind of season, even Reggie Bagleton kind of guy, no matter what, you better be giving everything you got, because I think there are a lot of coaches, and I don't blame them for this. I think there are a lot of coaches that look at situations like this, and then they really can find out if a guy really wants it or not. Does he really want it when the standings are out of reach? Does he really want it when you're real down in the score in the third quarter? If you're getting blown out late in the fourth quarter, which players have not quit at all? That's the type of player you want, and that's what you want to build around. So, they'll be watching. Management will be watching those guys in Calgary. They're not going to just lie down.
We mentioned it before a few weeks ago. We mentioned it numerous times today. You just mentioned it. The way that teams get hamstrung with the roster requirements, is it time for a change for the requirements for rosters to allow things like resting guys, saving guys to happen, or is the system fine the way it is?
Well, I think the change that, if it's possible, could happen would be to increase the roster size. I mean, that's the simple solution, and do it with Canadians and Americans, or imports, I guess, because we get the odd one from Europe and things like that. But yeah, I think that can be looked at, or should be looked at. the Canadian ratio shouldn't be messed with, shouldn't be touched. Canadian ratio is not something that is there to protect Canadian jobs. It's there to provide Canadians with opportunities that they wouldn't have if there wasn't a ratio, because it would be so easy, even for a Canadian GM, to go to Texas and do a free agent camp and look at 100 players and say, there's 5 that are maybe pro ready out of the 100. And in order to get those 5 in Canada, he's got to go to every university across the country and find them. There's just not as many, but they're there. This year, we could possibly have the leading rusher in the league and the leading receiver in the league, both Canadian. And if what I think will happens with Canadian quarterbacks in Trey Ford and Nathan Rourke, it won't be long before a Canadian quarterback is leading the league in all categories as well. And so they can play. It's not about protecting jobs. The ratio is there to provide opportunity for Canadians, fair opportunity.
So if you want to increase the roster size, what is the biggest stumbling block to doing that? And when was the last time that they did it?
You kind of froze there in the question. The
just why, what is the biggest stumbling block in increasing roster sizes? Is it a money thing? Is it a body thing? And when is the last time that they actually did change roster requirements in the CFL?
Yeah, it's been a while. And it is money. It's just flat out money. But again, it's been a great season. It's been a great 3 seasons with the product on the field. I mean, we've talked a lot about games being decided in the final 3 minutes this year. It's about 65% of our games, and that's outstanding entertainment value. Attendance has been up across the board. Our ratings at TSN are excellent. It's one of the highest rated things, if not the highest rated programming that we do in the regular season of any sport, including hockey. Now, we only have regional rights in hockey, but I'm comparing it to Sportsnet's hockey ratings. So, I think all of those indicators are there to suggest that there might be more revenues in the next few years. And gambling has been a part of that too, and gambling organizations that have become big sponsors in the league or with TSN and other entities. So, I think if there is new revenues, a lot of things can be cleaned up by increasing the roster size so that special teams cover players and special team return players are separate from the starting lineup on offense and defense. There'll be less fatigue, less injuries, less penalties. I think you'll see crisper game top to bottom. And maybe even it trickles into more points, because let's be honest, our rules, the field size, the unlimited motion, all of it really do help the offense get an advantage and an edge.
For sure.
Be able to run full speed at the line of scrimmage.
I want to get in a couple more here before we let you go.
Yeah.
Who's starting a quarterback for the BC Lions November 2nd?
Oh, it's VA. It'll be VA. Vernon Adams Jr., he earned the job with that last game, even though Montreal didn't play all their guys. They missed a couple of guys, taking nothing away from Vernon Adams. But, I think when you see what happened out there, I hate to think that anyone on that roster was playing differently or preparing differently because of who was playing quarterback. And then when Vernon Adams got the chance to start again, they just played harder. I hate to think that is even possible. However, they looked different. I mean, the team looked different. Like they were almost sort of supporting this decision and taking that extra little step, almost the playoff step.
Yeah. Speaking of Montreal not playing guys, go to BC. They stink. What do we expect from Montreal? Are you as intrigued as me this game? With Winnipeg coming in, what's Montreal going to do? Are they going to play guys?
I think they are. I as far as I heard, and you go back to the BC game too, and Jason Moss made the decision to play Cody for an entire half. Cody Fajardo played the entire half. I mean, in a game that you can't change your position in the standings, that's risky, but that's what Jason Moss is all about. He said, our standards in practice are that we're all playing, we're going all the way through. It's not resting and getting anyone thinking complacently. We are just going to attack. So I expect to see the starters at least to start the game.
Okay, we've been talking about this all day. You work for TSN. Do you remember when TSN launched? You were still playing when TSN launched, and it was just like they're just trying to fill time on TSN, and they had everything. Like, what are some of the things we've had people messaging in? We've had like billiards was on, and bowling and all that. What do you remember?
Darts. I remember 20. You know, I don't even know. I guess that was double 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
And darts, pool. There was some wild.
Kiana's Flex Appeal. Well, come on, we all remember that. That was fantastic programming.
Yeah, no, it's been a long journey, you know, and to think that, first of all, it took a long time for the Canadian Football League and sort of the big players in those boardrooms to believe in TSN to be able to put a championship game on the air and get coast to coast. And by the way, the Eastern playoffs, I'll get Rider fans riled up here. The Eastern playoffs will be on TSN and CTV. The Grey Cup will be on TSN and CTV. The Western playoffs will only be on TSN. So there you go. There's just a little match. Throw it right on the fire and let's go.
Oh yeah. That's exactly what's going to happen. The texts are going to start to fly in here. And it's amazing the amount of Australian rules football we watched growing up in the 80s that I still have no idea the rules on Australian rules football. And we grew up with it in Canada because it was on like 5 hours a day on TSN.
Well, you know, Marnie, it's Australian rules rugby or football is one of the examples I use when I talk about how we can just be proud of our own football, like our own American style football, which is the CFL. You know, we don't have to always be comparing. And Australian rules, they're different than the rest of the world in their rules in rugby. Different field size, different rules. I don't even know all the intricacies of the differences, but they're a lot different. But you know what? In Australia, it's the number one watch sport. In Australia, their championship game outrates anything that they put on the air ever. Their stadiums are full, and they absolutely love it and are completely behind and proud of their own style of rugby. And I go, that's what Canada can be with our game.
That's a fantastic point, Glenn, because it's Ireland is the same way with hurling. Like, they're the only country that plays hurling, and it's their number one sport, and they do it for free. They have a professional hurling league, but the players who play in it work a day job all day, and then they go beat each other's brains in on the hurling field, and they are passionate about it. But it's just an Irish pride.
We came up with the how to expand the rosters in the CFL right now. You just got 5 guys that'll do it for free. We expand it by 5 players. There we go. We figured it out,
They're
boys.
out there.
Glenn. All right. I think the boys are going to talk to you Thursday. Thanks so much for this, and have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
Boys, playoffs right around the corner. It's getting tense. I love it. Thanks, guys.
It is.